Dave Anderson here with the Fisherman magazine, and this week, striped bass are here to stay. They've made their way all the way through Massachusetts and are now crossing over into New Hampshire. We are hearing about great tautog fishing in Rhode Island, and the ramp-up is beginning in Massachusetts. Shad fishing is approaching its peak on the Connecticut River and is really just starting to fire up on the Merrimack. Stay tuned for all that and more on this week's New England Fishing Forecast.
The Fishing News is sponsored by these fine partners.
It's the first week of May and things are looking pretty interesting, I have to say. Striped bass fishing is exploding, especially throughout southern New England. Same with tog fishing. But, these stripers have shown up a little earlier, at least in the numbers that we're seeing, than we typically expect to see, especially with such a cold spring. And if what I saw down in New Jersey a couple weeks ago is any kind of an indication of what's on the way, things are going to get interesting, and they're going to get interesting fast. But before we get into the fishing part of this report, we got a couple news items to cover. We're going to start off with the lure giveaway. And again, I'm just going to remind you, I'm giving away a Gibbs GT Troller copy. Not this one. This is my friend Teddy's. This is an original. This is the last one that he has, and this was a secret weapon for him and his buddies back in the 70s and 80s on the Cape, and maybe it could be a secret weapon for you and me, because I'm going to make a handful of these. I'm going to give a couple to Teddy, I'm going to keep a couple for myself, and I'm going to make one for one of you out there that gives me the best photo. So far, the photos coming in have been kind of a trickle, and, so you've got a really good shot at winning this thing, and there will be a couple runner-up prizes as well. So don't feel like you only got one shot. Send those photos in to me, danderson@thefisherman.com, and this is going to wrap up on the last Thursday in May, and then probably going to start another one. But I'm expecting to see some really nice fish coming in over these next couple of weeks, and I'm hoping that you're going to take some photos, and I'm hoping you're going to send them my way. Another thing that's going on is, lo and behold, Massachusetts finally came through with their regs. So, this has really been a slog this year. It really feels like the states have been kind of, just holding their fire for whatever reason. But, so here's the details on what you got to know from Massachusetts. Black sea bass is going to open May 21st and close September 4th. That's a minimum size of 16 inches and a 4-fish limit during that time. Fluke is going to open up May 21st as well. It's going to close on September 29th. And it's a pretty small 16.5-inch minimum size limit, and that's a 5-fish bag limit. Scup is going to be open, is already open, opens May 1st, closes the last day of the year. You got a 10-inch minimum, which is up an inch from last year, and you got a 30-fish bag limit during that entire time. The tog rules or regulations are very convoluted, and there's a lot of different details. The only thing you really need to know right now is that through the end of the month, you can keep 3 fish at 16 inches. It's going to, as of June 1st, it's going to drop down to 1 fish at 16 inches, and then things change again from there. You can check our website for full details, or just wait for me to prompt you as we go into the summer with these report videos. That's the news stuff that I have for you guys this week. So now let's move over to the fishing part of things, and we're going to start in Massachusetts as we usually do. And I checked in with James Jukes. He said that he had a hunch, that there was some fresh run stripers up his way, and he went out on Plum Island, and lo and behold, he found them. These are small fish. They're probably topping out at 20 inches. And you're going to get them on bucktails. You're going to get them on little paddle tails. You might get 1 or 2 on like a small topwater plug. You're also going to find some stripers, maybe even some slightly larger stripers that are holdovers up in the Merrimack. Those are your best options there. As you're heading south, kind of coming down the North Shore toward Boston, and then, into the South Shore and out toward the canal, every mile that you move south, your chances are going to get better for finding a higher concentration of these schoolie fish and having a higher possibility of maybe finding that rogue slot fish that might just have kind of headed up early with a school of smaller fish. In the canal itself, just a few small stripers around. I talked to East End Eddie today. He said that there's very, very few stripers in the canal, plenty of bait in the canal, and a lot of guys are doing well on tog inside the canal. But we're still got at least a week or so to wait until the canal sees its first real push of stripers. I'm going to go out on really go out on a limb here and say that it's going to be, we'll see that first really good push, right before the moon in the middle of the month. So you can keep your eye on that. Out on the Cape proper, on the north side of the Cape, we're not seeing a lot of striper action at all. On the south side, basically from basically the Nantucket Sound beaches, we're seeing some striper action there. The best striper fishing in Massachusetts right now is occurring inside Buzzards Bay and the tributaries that empty into it. I've seen fish personally, pushing slot size up into the slot in that area, and I've seen photos of fish that were up to 35 inches from there, and they're just going to keep getting bigger and bigger from now on. But good numbers of fish, and even better numbers in Rhode Island. So stay tuned for the Rhode Island portion of the report. But all these things are heading in that direction, so it's just going to keep getting better and better. Tog fishing's looking pretty good in Massachusetts. As I mentioned, they're getting fish inside the canal, and the better fishing is taking place out in Buzzards Bay and up around Woods Hole. I checked the buoys last night before I went fishing just to see what the water temps were locally. And out in Woods Hole was the highest water temp I saw. It was just over 51 degrees. And I mean, that's a milestone. It's a milestone for stripers, and it's a milestone for blackfish. So, once things creak over that 50-degree line, things tend to get better and better for both of those species. So we've broken that threshold, and that typically is the breaking point when things just start to move toward getting better and better, seeing bigger and bigger fish, more and more action. So that's really great news across the board there. I haven't seen anything of great size tog-wise in Massachusetts, but there's definitely keeper fish being taken. And, in the coming week or weeks, we should start seeing more and more bigger and better fish in those areas. Fluke's still closed in fluke, sea bass, and scup are still closed in Massachusetts, so we're going to wait a little while on that. On the freshwater, actually, one more thing. We did see the beginning of the winter flounder fishery, though. Things are starting to look good. Goose Hummock posted a picture of a big limit that one of their guys got from a local estuary. Most of that action is going to be north of the Cape, so it's going to be on the north side of the Cape or heading up toward Boston. We have multiple charter boats that run flounder charters. You can check them out. You can check out Jason Colby and Little Sister. You can check out the Black Rose. You can check out Tigger 2. You can check out Gray Dolphin. There's a few others that will probably run those trips also. But those are the four that really push, that really make a push for the, to do the flounder fishing. And the limits are good. Fishing's just starting to pick up. It's only going to get better. So if that's something you've been waiting for, you don't need to wait any longer. It's time to go. On the freshwater side of things, it's still very good, but definitely seeing a lot of anglers migrating over to saltwater now. Still seeing a lot of big largemouth bass being taken. I think just because it's been a cold end of April and beginning of May, water temps just haven't quite gotten up to that spawning level yet. So they're kind of holding back, and it's creating an extended season for the guys especially the guys that like to throw big baits, and especially at night. Seeing most of these bigger fish seem to be coming at night. Wake baits and glide baits are producing fish, in the 5 to 7 plus pound range. So if you're looking to get that last big largemouth before you devote yourself to stripers or some other saltwater species that you target all summer, this next week or so is going to be probably your last chance, but also one of your best chances of the year. To do that, trout fishing is still very good. The Massachusetts does a great job stocking. They continue to stock, and all indications point to anyone going for trout, especially out on the Cape and in the lower reaches toward the Cape. All signs point to that being a great fishery, and most people that go are having success. And that's the story that I have for you guys in Massachusetts this week. As we cross over into Rhode Island, there's two species that are leading the way. It's blackfish and it's striped bass. Black fishing has really just continued to get better and better and better in Rhode Island. And from what I'm hearing, for the most part, guys are getting these fish in fairly shallow water. I'd call it jiggable water. It's no deeper than 30 feet, mostly between like 12 and 25 feet seems to be where I'm hearing most of the catches coming from. And I'm not hearing about a ton of really big fish, but I'm hearing about lots of solid fish. A lot of fish in that like 5 to 7.5, even 8 pound range. Definitely relating to prominent structures. A lot of guys are doing well on wrecks right now, and big ledges. And it's just been phenomenal. But the only thing that's holding anybody back is the fact that green crabs have become harder and harder to get for some reason. And so, some guys are flipping rocks to get their bait, and some guys are just calling as many shops as they can and trying to, fill a bucket however possible. But the catches have been good, and it's only going to get better from here. On the striped bass side of things, the upper bay has seen a strong influx of striped bass. They're not giant fish, but there's a lot of slot fish in the mix now, and they just kind of showed up. It just was like a big movement of these, say 25 to 35, even 36, 37-inch fish that just kind of rushed into the bay over the last week or so. And the reports I've been hearing from guys that have been out there on the boat they almost sound like fall reports. There's fish on top. There's birds working. And, guys are throwing a variety of different baits at them and just crushing them. They're getting them on small top waters like the jumping minnow or like the top knock pencil. They're getting them on little poppers. They're getting them on like 5-inch paddle tail plastics. Getting them on bucktails, shallow running swimming plugs. All these things are working. A lot of fish, a lot of bait. And, when you get on them, you're going to catch a lot of them, and you're going to catch lots of fish that are in that slot size. Definitely a good time to think about crushing those barbs. You're using single hook only because they're hitting almost anything, and there's a lot of them, and it makes for an easy release. We can keep those fish alive and happy, and we can enjoy them again in a few years when they get a lot bigger. Same thing could be said for what's happening out front. There's the same class of fish, from like 24 inches up to 35 inches. Guys are getting them from the surf in Newport. They're getting them from the surf all along South County, in the breachways, up inside, many estuaries. Same lures, you're getting them on small top waters. A lot of guys doing well on little bucktails and paddletail shads. And, most guys are still throwing their 7, 8, 9 foot rods, but that's going to change rapidly, as I already mentioned once. As we get closer to this next moon, which is coming up around the 15th, I believe, I'm expecting to see things change in a big way. I'm expecting to see 20-pounders, 30-pounders, and I won't be surprised at all to hear about the first couple 40-pounders coming in around that time. I think we got 10 days or so before that moon actually hits. But even in those 5 days leading up to the moon, that's when these fish move. That's when, once that tide starts to move a little bit harder, that's when these fish make their moves, and we're going to see them, and things are going to get really good and really crazy. So if you still got a few items to check off on that honey-do list, I'd do it this week because things are going to get crazy out there. As far as ground fishing goes, cod fishing still seems like a grind. I'm just not hearing about a lot of guys doing well in that fishery, and I'm hoping that things are going to turn around, but right now it's still a grind. They're getting fish and putting together limits. They're just moving around a lot to find those fish, and also weather's played a big factor. It's made it so that many planned trips have had to be canceled. So just hasn't been the greatest ground fish year so far. On the freshwater side of things, what I'm hearing mostly from Rhode Island waters is two things. One, the largemouth guys, for some strange reason, have been having a hard time finding big ones. Could be a component of this colder end of the spring that we're having. These fish just may be sitting deeper and just not feeding, or who knows, maybe it's just bad luck. And on the trout end of things, all the stock ponds are still producing. Guys are doing very well, and really haven't heard anybody that's been fishing for trout really anywhere in New England complaining about it. Fishing's just been great. And that's a story that I have for you guys in Rhode Island this week. Over in Connecticut, you have to remember that Blackfish is closed. I know, that's ridiculous. It seems, I just don't understand it. Things were getting really good right as we came into that, right as we came to the end of April, but it's over. No more black fishing, so just don't forget that. And don't cross over into Rhode Island waters and catch a blackfish and bring it back either, because that's still against the law, and you could still be held accountable. But striped bass fishing is looking great throughout all of Connecticut. It seems to be kind of coming at you from both sides. We've got some smaller fish moving in from the eastern end, and we've got some better fish, either dumping out of the rivers or coming through somewhere in the western sound, coming through the East River or something. Although I don't think they're heading through there yet. But there's been a solid pile of nice fish out that way. Again, similar to what you're seeing in Narragansett Bay. Fish up to like 18 pounds, maybe touching 20. If you want to look for one of those bigger fish, you're going to want to head up into the rivers and fish around the herring runs. Still, most of those fish are going to top out at like 15, 16 pounds, but you get a better chance at breaking 20, and you have the possibility of going much larger. If you need some tips on how to fish around the runs at this time of the year, rewatch last week's video. I went through it pretty in detail. I'm not going to do it again this week, but the one thing I'll say, don't be afraid to fish fast. Let's see, the other things that are going on in Connecticut. Oh, yeah, that's right. The shad fishing in the Connecticut River is approaching its peak. I talked to Aaron Swanson, our Connecticut field editor, and he said that right now it's not quite as good as he thinks it's going to get, but if you go, you're going to have a good shot at getting about 1 to 3 shad per hour, and that's per angler. It's not like for a whole group of guys gets 1 to 3. It's 1 to 3 per angler. They're fishing, mostly fishing leaves, and things are looking good. The flows aren't too terribly high. We got a little bit of rain that just came through, but even that, according to him, shouldn't have too much of an effect. So that is a good and viable fishery. And then another thing too, scup fishing is, I haven't heard of any scup being caught on our side of the sound, but I saw the Black Hawk made a trip. I got a couple pictures here from them of their first scup run of the year, or porgy, depending on where you live or what you prefer to call them. But if you want to go out and look for scup / porgies, you're going to want to head across. You're going to want to head across the Peconic Bay. That's where it all begins every year. In the Peconics is where most of these charter boats make their runs to, and that's where you should make your run to too. Pick a good day, pick a nice flat day, head across, and you're definitely going to have, you're going to start your porgy season off with a successful trip, because that's where it all begins. And you also got a shot at catching some weak fish over there too. On the freshwater side of things, we're definitely hearing a continuation of high praise for the state as far as how well they are doing stocking. Seems like those trout stamps are working. I know not everybody loves paying for them, but we're seeing great stocking efforts, great catches across the entire state. Still hearing about really good smallmouth bass fishing up in the Connecticut River and out at Candlewood. Guys are doing well on a variety of baits. Jerk baits seem to be leading the way, along with jigs. Jigs are catching the bigger fish, by the way, so if you want to target a giant, definitely throw a jig. Let's throw it over to Max now from Fisherman's World. Let's hear what's happening out in the western part of the state.
We've seen a lot of stripers starting to move into the western sound, coming through the East River and down from the Hudson from the spawn. We've seen fish to 15 to a little over the 30-pound mark. Places like the Throgs Neck, off City Island, off Rye, Hempstead, and Mamaroneck. Guys trolling deep divers, bunker spoons, mojo rigs, and umbrellas are really doing well. This should only get better as the spawn is coming to an end soon and the fish are really going to start pushing through the sound. Locally around the islands and our harbors, we still have a lot of schoolies, some slot fish, and we've seen some overslot mixed in. Guys throwing stuff like SPs, small topwaters in the morning, and then your favorite soft plastic on jig heads. Locally, the Housatonic is still holding fish. We've seen some nicer fish to like the 20, maybe 30 pounds. We've got a lot of slot-sized fish in that river right now, and you really got to work through. But trying to get a bigger fish, I definitely fish at night and fish a little more into the river and upriver more with all the river herring. And then Fluke just opened up. On our side, our water's still a little cold, so guys shooting across, that would be the best bet. Places like Smithtown Bay, and then up inside Eaton's Neck. Fluke spearing, squid, and then gulp with bucktails work well this time of year. Porgies, they're starting to come in on our side on some deeper stuff, but mostly a lot of the action's in Oyster Bay. So, your favorite bait like sandworms, clams work really well, and squid. And remember always to bring clam chone. And then on the freshwater side, the trout fishing is still very good. The state did a really good job this year stocking our local waters, and they just stocked the Saugatuck again this week. So I would get up on there and throw your favorite lure some trout. Thanks and good luck.
Thanks, Max. Really appreciate the video. I'm looking forward to your next one next week. Last thing I'm going to mention for Connecticut is the fluke fishing, which hasn't really started yet. But most of the guys that are going to head out for fluke are going to cross the Sound. They're going to go try Montauk or Connecticut Bay, or the most popular place for most Connecticut fishermen is, out behind Fishers at Isabella Beach. And I haven't heard of a fish caught there yet, but there's a lot of squid around, so it shouldn't be too long before that starts to fire up. While we're on the subject of fluke, I just wanted to mention one of the most popular baits over these last 5 or so years has been the biodegradable soft plastics made by Fish Bites.
For more than 20 years, anglers everywhere have come to know one thing, that nothing says no to fish bites.
Another thing that needs to be mentioned is that the Dream Boat and the Coastal Kayak Clash have started, and we have our first few entries, including the first striped bass ever entered in the Coastal Kayak Clash. So we're going to show you both of those videos now. The 2022 Coastal Kayak Clash is underway, and just like clockwork, on that first day, we received our first entry of the season, a 35.5-inch striped bass, which is the first striper ever entered in the CKC. This was entered by John Jurjevic, caught up in Raritan Bay. He kicks off the festivities, and we'll see what happens next week.
The Fisherman Magazine subscriber-only Dreamboat Fishing Challenge has officially begun, and it's off to a great start. This week's Andreas Brundler weighed in a 7.95-pound weakfish from Shinnecock Canal. Glenn Oberweiler weighed in a 3.05-pound sea robin, also from Shinnecock. And Brian Zembreski entered his 2.18-pound porgy from the North Shore of Long Island. All are competing to win an incredible first-place prize, a 23 Steigercraft Miami powered by a 200-horsepower Yamaha. Remember, you must be a subscriber to enter your fish. Follow us now through the end of November as the Dreamboat drama unfolds.
And we'll wrap things up with a report from quite far away down in Marina Pezuela in Costa Rica. Take it away, Ben Gilmore.
Hey guys, we're checking in here from Costa Rica from the Marina Pezuela. We've had some excellent bill fishing this last couple of weeks. We just finished the Offshore World Championships here at the Marina Pezuela with 37 boats from literally all corners of the world. The guys released 600 sailfish and 65 marlin over 4 competition days. For our anglers and tourists coming down, the bill fishing is looking really hot at the moment. Boats are going out and catching anywhere between 3 and 10 sailfish a day, plus blue marlin. There's some great yellowfin tuna fishing out there, and we've had some really big trophy mahi-mahi, or dorado as we call them here, in the 40 to 50 pound range. Closer to shore, along the beaches, rocks and islands, we've had some excellent rooster fishing with some big trophy rooster fish in the 30 to 50 pound range, plus some snook at the river mouths and jacks, mackerel and all of the other inshore species we get here. I hope to see you down here soon, guys. Pura vida from Costa Rica.
And that's what I have for you guys this week. Hopefully you guys are going to find these reports useful, and hopefully you're going to use them as motivation to go out and catch some fish, take some pictures and send them to me. So maybe, just maybe, you can win one of these made by me, and you'll be one of the few guys out there still throwing this bait, and hey, it could give you an edge. If you're not a subscriber to The Fisherman, I highly recommend heading over to the website and checking out what we have to offer. We're covering the entire East Coast from Delaware all the way up to Maine. Every species that you can catch in that area. You get access to all 3 editions. You get access to all the reports, all the back issues. It's the best $30 you can spend in modern day fishing publications. So check that out. But if you head over to the website and you're still not convinced, at the very least, give us a like and subscribe here on YouTube and hit that little bell thing down there so you get a notification every time we post something new. I appreciate you guys. Send in your photos, and we'll see you guys next week.